people keep saying over here, like, what are recruiters going to be in the future? They're going to be like relationship architects is one phrase I've heard, or talent marketers, those are the phrases I'm being heard about what they're going to be doing at that point. So more of a concierge, maybe, those types of things.
Welcome to the Tech Savvy Recruiter, the podcast for recruitment and staffing agency owners keen to explore the tech innovations reshaping our industry. I'm Andrew Roger from RecMate.
And I'm Belinda Kerr from Recruitment Garage, and together we're your hosts, bringing you a stellar lineup of recruitment tech and AI experts ready to help you understand and, more importantly, benefit from the increasing array of tech available to you today. Today, we're welcoming Chris Russell to our Tech Savvy Recruiter podcast. Chris is known in the industry as the mad scientist of online recruiting. He's the founder of RecTech Media, a consultancy and media company focused on recruiting technology, and host of the RecTech podcast, which has been covering the intersection of recruitment and tech for well over 700 episodes. Well done, Chris. That's quite a feat.
Yeah, I think we're like 10 years in, close to it.
Chris has straddled every side of the industry: job board founder, corporate recruiter, consultant, which gives him obviously a genuinely rare ability to cut through vendor noise and talk with relevance. So if you want to know what's happening at the sharp end of AI and RecTech, Chris is one of the first people worth listening to. So a very warm welcome to the podcast, Chris.
Thank you, Belinda and Andrew. I appreciate the intro there. Very nice of you, and happy to chat with my friends down under there.
Amazing. Is there anything else that you'd like to add to your intro there that you'd like people to know, or have we given you a good intro?
That sums it up pretty. My mad scientist. I do a lot of stuff in the space. I podcast, I write, I consult, I go to events, cover events, and just try and stay in touch. And, I started my company to basically help inform the modern recruiter out there, because technology is changing the profession so much that, a lot of them don't speak tech, but I do. And I try and help dumb it down for them a bit and show them what's out there and what's possible with technology today.
Yeah, that's perfect. And I think that's amazing, because the dumbing the down a bit, I think it makes it so much more accessible for people who just aren't tech first, like myself. When I can hear it in just kind of layman's language, I get it. But when I hear people start talking about sandboxes and all that sort of stuff, I'm like, what?
Yeah, I tell vendors all the time, like, talk in plain English to recruiters and people you want to sell to, because they don't speak in jargon and acronyms and all that kind of stuff,
Yeah. 100%. Chris, I wanted to kick off with a question we were just talking before, actually, about you've obviously straddled both sides of the fence. And a lot of the recruitment founders or recruitment companies at the moment are worried, for good reason, that a lot of their business will move in-house, being AI and tech-led. I'd just love to know what you're seeing there and what your thoughts are around that.
Well, I think because of AI, we've seen sort of peak recruiter and HR staffing in our industries. And that's because AI allows you to do more with less. I don't think it's going to replace recruiters overall, but it's definitely going to shrink the teams overall. And I think Greenhouse had some stats around this. I have to go back and look, but the average team is shrunk, I don't know, by like probably 20, 25%, something like that in the last few years. I don't see that coming back, because tech now can scale a lot of these recruiter functions. So I think you're going to have smaller teams, but they're going to scale more with the technology they use to hire.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think we saw a bit of a COVID bloat with a lot of organizations with staffing levels.
Yeah, during COVID, people went nuts with hiring recruiters and HR people. Like it was a booming market back then, in 21 and 22 and stuff. And but since then, all the new tech now coming out is geared at basically reducing your staff, essentially. I mean, if you really look at it,
Chris, is this different to the internet when it got switched on? I remember, I think the three of us probably remember when there was print advertising for jobs, and then this thing called the internet advertising came, and everyone was like, oh, chicken little, the sky's going to fall in. We're going to be out of a job now. There's going to be no more recruiting and staffing people because everyone will just go direct. The TA teams will have a field day. Is this the same thing, or should we maybe be a little bit worried because of the efficiencies of technology enabling internal teams to do a little bit more sophisticated, whereas the gap is often filled by that external recruiter?
I would say yes and no to that question. I mean, it's the recruiters of today are going to see this as like I said, the teams are getting smaller, right? So it's really about, using this technology to scale more. So I really think that like the AI interview tools, at the end of the day, Andrew, like recruiting is still a human function. We still have to hire somebody in person. So that part's never going away. I truly believe that that's not going away. You still have to hire people unless you're like, like an Amazon who hires sight unseen and just invites people in droves to show up at the warehouse and work, right? There are those outlier cases, but I do think that at the end of the day, you still have to have a human human behind this stuff. And you're seeing now with like the fraud coming out in some of the circles, fraud news about AI, fake candidates or people pretending to be somebody else. Well, how are you going to fix that? It's in person is going to have to be part of that solution in terms of, verifying a candidate. And so I don't think that part's going away overall, but again, it's going to shrink those teams down to a smaller portion.
You touched on something really interesting around interviews, because I think that there's a lot of tech development on that interview front. You mentioned Amazon doing a lot of that automatically via the technology stacks that are available to them. When it comes to doing that human interaction, that I guess that back and forth, as much as for the candidate as for the hiring manager, have we cracked it, or has the technology cracked that to perfection? Or, where are we heading with that interview process? Will it be here in 5 years' time?
We're getting there. I believe AI can solve a lot of these problems, from, erasing the resume black hole and fixing the communication problem with candidates today. Like, one of the biggest frustrations job seekers have is the communication after applying, right? AI can fix that. The technology is there today if you implement it properly to, keep the candidate in the loop. What's going on? Here's, just positioning them in a timely manner, right? All that is possible today. It's just a matter of putting in that effort on the employer side to activate those features on the software. At the same time, a lot of companies are still stuck with their old software, their old ATSs. And that's where a lot of these problems lie. They can't fix it. They can't change that software because it's such a huge pain for them that they're stuck with these kind of older tools, like there's still old versions of Taleo out there and success factors. I feel for those recruiting teams because they're stuck and they can't change it. It's not in their power to change it. Like, it has to come from leadership. And if they want to change, it's going to take, a good year to put a new ATS in there and make that transition. So it's not easy. So that's why there's still all these problems out there. I've been talking about the resume black hole for 25 years, and it's still as bad as it was back in 2000. But I do believe that AI can solve these things, and we're starting to see some of that technology come up now. So I'm hopeful, at least it's going to take a good 5 years at least for it to really infiltrate, corporate America and get involved there and get the things rolling. So
when you say it's bad, Chris, what is it that you believe needs to be fixed?
A lot of it is just basic stuff, Belinda, like getting a rejection email is still poor, right? It's a luxury.
It's been going for like 30 years. It's crazy, isn't it?
That is the single easiest thing for an employer to fix. Go in there, check the boxes of everybody you're not going to hire, and send them that automatic email. How hard is that? If I were running a recruiting team, I would make that part of their job. Like, you need to disposition every candidate come through this door and tell them either yes or no. If it's a yes, move them on. If it's a no, say thank you, and end it right there. But the job seekers deserve to know, in a timely fashion, you're either going to move them on or you're not going to hire them. And that is something that I think few employers care too much about. I built a product called Rejobify about 8 years ago that actually helped them with that. So we took over their rejection email, rewrote it into a very nice tone. It made it sound a lot better. We gave them, in that email, we said, okay, we're not going to hire you, but we have some stuff to give you to help you on your job search journey, wherever that may take you. So we offer them a landing page where that job seeker could go and give them, job search tools, some free ebooks that some of our career coaches had written, things like that, right? So we were trying to give back to the seeker, thanking them for applying. When I started running that business as well, got some initial traction. But at the end of the day, no employer cared about it. They just did not want to. They didn't think of the rejection email as something they wanted to put money into. It wasn't that expensive. It was like $1,000 a year or something. But I thought it was a great idea. But at the end of the day, no employer cared about it.
I think it's a great idea. It just comes back to that short-term thinking, doesn't it? And it sort of pervades the whole industry, that that quadrant they talk about where we need to be focusing a lot more of our attention in the important future stuff. That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, it's almost like a jeweler with the raw materials of gold, and you're carving out the ring and you're discarding the rest. You're just throwing it in the bin. It's just ridiculous. I've got a mate who runs a outsourcing business, and he gets 3,000 applications a week. He's in the Philippines, and they're sort of ranked as one of the top companies to work with, like the Google of the Philippines for outplacements. And he just said, I can't let these people go because there is gold in that hill and I just can't mine it quick enough. So he built a tech platform so that everybody gets an interview and then they get progressed or rejected appropriately.
Glad you mentioned that. That's what's coming. Like, AI allows you to interview everybody who comes through the door, right? Now, the con is that, it's a robot interviewing a human. However, you can really change that candidate experience with a tool like that, a solution like that. So I can get an interview right away, whether or not I pass that initial phone screen, and move me on the process. I would rather have that as a seeker versus, just sending a resume to who knows where and who knows how long.
It's low-hanging fruit. It's such an easy, basic thing to fix, but we've focused on the impossible and put all our energy there. But this is a huge one. So a little bit leading on then from that, and you talk about the AI war happening between candidates and employers right now. Would you mind just sharing a little bit more about your thoughts there, Chris?
Yeah, it's waging fiercely right now, Belinda. It's going crazy out there. Like if you've got these job seekers using all these auto apply tools, the lazy applies, those things to apply to hundreds of jobs like in minutes, and then on the other side, you've got the employers now being bombarded with all these applications. I think the average application now is, according to Greenhouse, it was up to 240 resumes per opening. That's up from like 120, like just a couple of years ago. It's not uncommon to get 1,000, 2,000, 3,000 resumes. You mentioned, Andrew, for a position today. I talked to a recruiter yesterday for a CTO position that her client had posted. They got 2,000 applications. So that's the unfortunate things that are happening in the market. And you've got fraud going on as well. There's all kinds of this war of AI job wars, as they call it, is crazy right now. And, I don't know what the answer is. I don't know who's going to strike a peace deal with each side here, but something's got to give eventually. And right now it's open war on every side here, and it's raging fiercely, as I said.
Chris, so those candidates that are coming through, those 200, I think you said 240 people that are coming through, are they all real people? Like what percentage of those would be AI?
That's a great question. I think, I want to say it's a small percentage. I'm trying to remember. I talked to somebody recently about this. I don't know. I want to say maybe, somewhere between 2 and 5%. I don't know, something like that, maybe.
I guess that's only going to increase as well.
And now the definition of fraud too is, debatable, right? One of the problems like in the US has for employers is that they get so much out of country applications. It's not really fraud, but it's just muddling up the application pool because they're never going to hire those folks. And so, like with my job board clients, we've started to do some like geo blocking of countries so that we filter out, the candidates who are never going to get hired into just the only country they're actually available to pull from. So we're doing stuff like that with some of the job boards. I think employers could potentially do some of that too to cut down the applications. But yeah, the fraud stuff is, I hear all the time, just anecdotally stories, from various recruiters, staffing firms, and, like people showing up, not the person that was interviewed, somebody doing a Zoom interview, and it turns out they're not that person, it's pretty crazy out there that what some job seekers are up to.
And is the increase in volume just because it's so easy to apply now?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. The easy applies and jobs are everywhere now. Like the amount of just places where you can go and search for jobs has exploded. There's all these different job scraping services. It's so easy to start a job board today. It's part of my consulting business that anybody can do it. You could have 1,000, 10,000, 100,000 jobs on day one on there if you just backfill it with listings. So jobs are everywhere now. And that proliferation has really opened up the candidate pool to everyone involved. Even like I've heard in stories about Indeed now, they're so big that even they're getting just crap applicants because they're just so giant and everyone goes there and applies. So it's definitely a problem. Filtering of quality candidates is definitely an issue over here.
So if you're building a new AI tech, think about heavy filtering.
Yes, you're going to have AI in the top of the funnel there to filter these folks. That's what an AI interview can do, right? We've had pre-screening questions forever, but I think AI interviews are a better way to do that. While at the same time, also improving that user experience. So I think we're headed there, but it's going to take like 5 to 10 years probably for that side of things to really be embedded and kind of, be a part of everyday life for HR and recruiting.
It's interesting. We've got a really large dominant job board in Australia, Seek, and that's it. You just apply through Seek, you advertise on Seek. There's every other job board's tried to battle it out with Seek, and Seek's been king of the castle forever. They've spent millions and millions. They're still here knocking, but I think it's the only region that they're not number one. Okay, so indeed. So I think they're very frustrated with that one.
Good job, Seek.
Yes. Yeah, it's interesting. So you just mentioned, I think that there's going to be changes, or you think there's going to be changes for those job boards because it's so easy to set your own one up if you wanted to. What do you see for those dominant job board providers happening in the next 5 years? What are the changes that you forecast there?
Well, in the last couple of years, the big have gotten bigger. So Indeed is now, 800-pound elephant in the room. Or gorilla, and they're pushing their weight around with their client base. They're basically dictating how they recruit today, making it difficult for their clients to do business with them. They're cutting down on all the free traffic they used to give employers and trying to squeeze more money out of them. They want disposition data now, so they want to get into your ATS and they want to know when you hire somebody and then charge you more for that essentially.
Yeah, because it's always been that black hole for the job board, right? what happens after the apply now button's been clicked.
I see why they want that. However, employers, like, that's their data. Like, why you're sticking your hands in like all this data that is not yours? I don't like that. Number one, I think there's privacy concerns there, and it's employers are over here pushing back. I've been on some employer calls that are Indeed clients, and they're definitely pushing back. There's a lot of confusion going around right now with Indeed's pricing model and what you can and can't do. And, so that's the one thing that's happening. At the same time, the other players in the market, like the ZipRecruiters of the world, have shrunk. And so the buffer they used to have between them and Indeed is now wider, which gives Indeed more power in our market over here. So I've been really harping on the ZipRecruiters of the world because they really have failed to kind of keep pace with the Indeeds of the world. And there's some other, smaller players like Jobcase and a few others over here, sort of the second tier of aggregators that are really falling on hard times lately because the hire market over here is really, really flat. The only thing keeping it afloat over here is healthcare jobs. And the last 2 years have been a bloodbath for the sort of the secondary larger job aggregators besides Indeed. Indeed is up again, but even what everybody else is down. ZipRecruiter is like, they're a quarter of what they once were. They're like, they used to be an $800 million company a year. Now they're like 250, 200, something like that. So they've really shrunk as far as their size and market share. So
it's interesting, isn't it? With Seek, remember a while ago, Andrew, I haven't heard much about it for a while, but so Seek created their own, I want to make sure I represent this properly, that they created their own agency and were using the CVs from the people, like the CVs that were applying to their clients' jobs.
They did. They had a small team internally. I think it was 2 or 3 people, and they were targeting some really hard to fill type jobs. And obviously they've got a huge data set in there.
Indeed's done some of that with like Indeed Flex, some of their like, they have like temp staffing now and stuff like that too with Indeed. So I think they're using that resume database to their advantage.
I certainly won't be surprised if that happens again, BK. It just is a logical product extension, which they will get a lot of flack for, but ultimately they've got shareholders to satisfy to keep I think their Indeed's revenue was 1.2, 1.3 billion last year. So they've got to keep the shareholders happy. And to Chris's point, there's only one way job boards are going to go, and it's not up anymore. And with the proliferation of technology and ability to create your own niche and have that serviced and satisfied automatically via AI, it's going to be hard for them.
Really interesting. And I know it's not a job board as such, but the LinkedIn Recruiter are putting their rates up again. And maybe I'm missing something. I do not understand how, with everything else that recruiters have at their fingertips now to find people, what am I missing? How is the LinkedIn Recruiter justifying its price point?
Yeah, there's another example of them, just charging more money now. I've heard the same complaints about LinkedIn as well with their pricing model.
I think it's a money grab, BK. I think they probably see where the curve is heading, and they're just making hay while the sun's still able to shine.
Well, I get founders all the time. In fact, I had one this morning. She came to me, my program, and she said, "Oh, my LinkedIn Recruiter's coming up for renewal, and I'm really not sure why I should be buying it." And I have that conversation quite often. So I don't know. I wonder how it's a lot. It's very expensive. So anyway, watch this space, I guess.
They still have Recruiter Lite packages.
Yeah. And I think to your point earlier, Chris, there's probably a 5-year window that these, let's quote it, old ways of doing things, old technologies have available to them. 5 to 7 years probably for the larger organizations that change very slowly.
Yeah, one thing I've learned over the 25 years is that nothing happens quickly in our space. It happens just gradually over time. And AI is going to be the same way.
So what do you think? So if that happens, then what will come in, like what will replace that?
Well, the theory over here is that people are talking about is that the AI agents are going to be talking to each other. So every job seeker is going to have an AI agent, and every employer is going to have an agent, and they're just going to talk to each other. Like your AI agent is going to apply on your behalf. It's going to know who you are, and so that's the thinking over here. That's where theoretically we're headed.
It's definitely starting. That's for sure.
Yeah, it's definitely starting.
An AI EA, and Lindy helps me book meetings and writes some of my emails and responds to other emails of mine automatically.
I have a feeling job seekers are going to have to pay for that agent, because that's going to be a product probably. So you have to pay for your own agent. I remember that. Did you guys see the movie Her with Joaquin Phoenix? He bought that operating system, right? I forget what it was called, but I remember he listened to his voicemails, and you have 3 new job offers today. So I think that's sort of, so yeah, go ahead and apply to those for me.
There'd be probably a central hub you can advertise your roles on, which will get picked up by the agents and promoted by your agent to you.
Still going to have to be some place to post jobs. I don't think job boards are going away. They're going to evolve a bit. At the end of the day, you still have to have a place to post a job, particularly if you're looking for active seekers right now. Like, I need somebody tomorrow. You need a job board to post that on. or a marketplace, something. So those are never going to be going away, right? So if you can build an audience of niche people, whatever it is, a niche job board is still viable, or any kind of general job board, right? So if you can attract people to it, employers will pay for that traffic, and
or attract agents to it, maybe, Chris. That's the case, might be, right?
That's crazy. So given that candidates now are using AI, to write their CVs and prep, etc., how does that change then what a good recruiter actually does for their clients? Because AI is taking over so many parts, you really have to sharpen your game and be able to give more value as a founder, as a recruiter, as a talent acquisition person. So how do they, I guess, navigate this change and come out on top?
Yeah, that's a great question, because I've heard that when recruiters are looking at resumes today, they all sound the same now, because the job seekers are using AI to match the job description and everything. So it's how do you filter out a top list of candidates from that? That's where I think the human intuition comes in, right? And so I'm hopeful that that's where recruiters will start to make their mark. People keep saying over here, what are recruiters going to be in the future? They're going to be relationship architects, is one phrase I've heard, or talent marketers. Those are the phrases I'm being heard about what they're going to be doing at that point. So more of a concierge, maybe, those types of things. So yeah, but today it's tough to filter out these resumes. You really have to, look at that resume and sort of, extrapolate, okay, is this BS or not, right? So to me, that takes a human eye overall.
Yes, and a conversation. And then I guess the next thing will be the person that you're talking to will be an AI and you won't know. It's crazy.
It's definitely going to be challenging today just to look at it. If you get 1,000 resumes, just to look at all those, I mean, I'd probably pull my hair out. But
yeah, it's interesting because we've had people on here saying, you get so many, and now the AI is going to be able to do so much of that searching for you. But if the CVs are AI generated, then you're not going to get to the truth.
It's muddying the waters a bit more now, because it's all lookalike, applicants. So
that's crazy. So I guess following on from that then, Chris, I love your thoughts on this statement that recruitment's always been about relationships, but does the AI race make that more important, or does it eventually just erode that advantage as well?
Yeah, I think it's going to erode it over time for a lot of companies. You're going to have some companies that just kind of go full in on AI and really automate the crap out of everything. But you're going to have your certain employers who are going to pride themselves on have a human-driven, recruiting process. I'm willing to bet that, right? So probably the bigger companies and those who can afford it, more humans, will kind of go that route and make it more like that. So you might see the smaller companies, maybe leverage AI more to shrink their staff a bit and make that process cheaper for them. But I think that there will be companies out there that will make the human in the loop, as they call it, a big part of the process. So like I said, at the end of the day, you still have to have the human involved at some point. So, you can automate scheduling, you can automate the interviews, you can automate some communications, but beyond that, you really got to, see the person in video or in person. There's no getting around that at the end of the day.
I read an interesting post the other day. I can't remember who it was, but they were basically saying AI is now taking all those parts away from the recruiter that they hated doing, like updating the database and the admin. And I thought, yeah, that's actually quite a good point. But as long as they keep that relationship piece there, then they
can source more and really be more proactive with their outreach, and spend their days doing that. So that's much more interesting, trying to find that needle in the haystack. And when you do get somebody in the process, you can then, really spend the time with that candidate and, concierge them along the process and, make that experience good.
That's an interesting concept, isn't it? I think that concierge piece, that's a real kind of switch. Yeah, I can see that happening. That makes a lot of sense.
Concierge, that could be a job title in the future, yeah.
I think you're right. I mean, we've got buyer's agents for the real estate industry, right? So you don't have to do the ring around to find your next home and or maximize the sale of your existing home. I think you're 100% right there, Chris, that we'll have that concierge style service to look after my career. And, shout me out if I'm wrong, but a good recruitment consultant should be doing that. They should be nurturing their talent pool. The technology, park that to one side. If you break down our role as recruiters is to develop those relationships and help people with their career growth, career moves. And the smart ones have placed them in grad roles and then they've upplaced them and then upplaced them. I've got a mate who's done it 5 times for the one individual and now they're at a CEO level. It's really interesting.
Yeah, I think AI can really help you, with your own database of candidates, just to keep them in touch and advise them and be that concierge over time. So I think hopefully they'll start to use that stuff.
Yeah, because it can be so highly targeted. If you think about it, if you have a look at somebody's profile, you can kind of pick up when they're going to move next, right? They've got a certain cadence of job change. And, some humans are pretty good at keeping in contact with those people at that certain stages. Most of us aren't because we're not a machine. But with the technology stacks there, you could have those flagged really, really efficiently.
Yeah, I've seen some tech in the past, a couple of years ago, that had they could tell you, okay, this person's about to change jobs, or that was a couple of years ago, actually. Have you heard of any of that tech today that does that?
I haven't seen it yet, but I think there's a gold mine there, particularly for internal teams as well, because you should be flagging when that person is getting itchy feet, right?
LinkedIn should be all over that. They should have, like, in LinkedIn Recruiter, hey, this person.
Red alert, Andrew's about to jump job. Pick him up and move him.
Isn't that what the tools like Clay and I'm trying to think of the other names of them, where they will look at a position, it's more the other way around. They'll say, okay, this person's moved over here, so now it looks like there'll be an opportunity for a financial controller here, and then organise to reach out to that new person saying, trying to make it a timely thing that it looks about the time that they'll be hiring. There must be the same in reverse as well.
Yeah, for sure. I think this is what we'll see coming up over the next very short period of time. And Chris made a really interesting point around old technology stacks. That's where I think they're going to fall short, because they won't be able to plug these tool sets in and hone what they've got available in front of the recruiter or in front of the TA teammates. So that change process, I forecast that let's call them the old school recruitment systems. Yeah, they're going to have to uplift, or people will shift.
Yeah. And also too, these tools are moving so quickly. These vendors selling these AI recruiter tools, most founders and can't keep up. And I'm sure it's the same on the TA side as well. How do we keep up and keep our eye on the ball? I mean, I know that we need to start with the problem first and then go to the tech, but you get the tech and then the next minute, you've solved that problem with that. And then there's another piece of tech that's either doing that and something else, or I know people are really struggling with that.
Yeah, I mean, it's the pace of change right now is crazy in the AI world, and every day there's something new coming out. I mean, I would just tell them, start small. And I talked to a staffing person yesterday. She's building sort of an anti-LinkedIn in Claude. Like, she's working on something, so the tools are there and they're actually fairly easy to use. They do require a little bit of tech know-how, though, still a little bit, just to like connect databases and, get it live. But you can create like a nice sort of, MVP product.
It's so much quicker.
Yeah. Mike Wolford is an author over here. He's built some stuff for sourcers. He's got a couple books out. I had him on my show a couple months ago. He's a big user of vibe coding to build tools he needs to do, to recruit and stuff.
Is it Wolford? Was it Chris? Did you say?
Mike, yeah, he'd be a good guest for you. Mike Wolford, WOLFOR. Yeah, he has a couple books out.
Yeah, I've got a couple of clients that are vibe coding. They've got their core ATS, and they're not going back to the vendor for stuff now.
Yeah, we're coming to a time where you can build your own software and you don't need to, pay these extraordinary amount of money to use it.
Yeah, and I guess that build, or what are they called? The build or buy. It's going to get easier to build. So people like me who are not coders, I'm already building stuff.
Like with some of the big software packages too. Now I'm hearing I forget it was vendor, I forget what vendor it was, but they're going to allow you to build inside of their product using AI, using vibe coding essentially. So you can build applications on top of, a Workday or something like that. Like, that's coming.
That makes a lot of sense. So it's a bit like a modern version of kind of customizing your own.
Yeah, exactly. Instead of having the company customize it, you can customize it yourself.
Yeah, I think Salesforce is pretty much there now. I've got a client working in there and all the connections are open for them to do whatever they basically need to supplement their journey from acquisition of a job through to post-placement care and everything in between. It's pretty crazy. It's interesting. I think you mentioned before, it's really hard to keep up, BK, with everything AI. Is that anxiety inducing or is it something else? I don't know. I certainly see my feed, and it's probably because I'm tuned into that part of the world, but every morning there's something new coming up that I need to be across, or you think you need to be across. How can recruiters and staffing professionals keep that eye on the ball, Chris, do you think? What's the best strategy there for them?
Well, they shouldn't bury their head in the sand at this point. It's they need to get out there and experiment with stuff, and listen to podcasts, go to some events as well, and just educate themselves. That's the biggest thing, right? You have to really stay on top of what's happening in the market these days and being proactive about it, because otherwise you just fall behind. So it is really,
and the rate of change is so fast, right? You can't afford not to stay tuned in. And I think part of an executive role now has changed dramatically to, working on the business a lot more than ever.
Something I've always, carried through my career, and something I tell younger folks as well is, always be learning about your industry. If you're doing that, you're usually ahead of the curve when it comes to people you deal with. So always be learning out there. And as I say on my podcast ending, always be recruiting.
Yeah, it's interesting. I attended a Claude workshop about, it was about building agents, and it was really good. And the gentleman who was doing it was clearly like really great at tech, but like you were saying before, Chris, he was articulating it really beautifully for those of us who weren't sort of tech first type people. And he said he's using so much AI now. He's got so many processes and things running through the day that he's sort of setting up and then leaving. And he's what do you call it when you're going from one thing to the next all the time?
Multitasking.
Yeah, multitasking. What was the word he used? It was like context shifting. Yeah, but essentially multitasking, I guess, throughout the day so much that he's finding that at the moment, at the end of the day, he's far more tired than he was before because his output is so much greater and he's doing all these different things. And I thought that's interesting because the whole idea is that our lives are all meant to get a little bit easier. So I thought, I hadn't heard anyone say that before. I was like, that's an interesting thing to say.
Yeah, where it might take a day or two to focus on one big task, it can be done via Claude in the background whilst you start firing up the next thing and then the next thing and then the next thing. So I get that.
It is crazy. And then I guess, and because these platforms are changing so quickly too, then you're kind of noticing and learning along the way as well as what's happening as well. So Chris, if you had one piece of advice to a recruitment founder or a TA person, because I know that's heavily your space as well, who's watching this and feeling a little bit behind, we just talked a little bit about learning and keeping on top. Is there anything else that you would say that they should be doing sort of, starting this week? If you're feeling like that, what's the one thing that they could do this week to start changing that?
I would say go on LinkedIn events and maybe find a webinar to attend, or lunch and learn or something like that. It's probably something around our space like that you could attend. A couple of people I listen to are, Hung Lee from Recruiting Brain Food. I listen to Chad and Cheese as well. I've got my own show, of course, RecTech. So pick up a couple of podcast subscribes too and just start learning, start immersing yourself in the world and you'll learn by osmosis.
Yeah, I love a podcast. I love a good podcast. So, well, with that said, Chris, let's hear a little bit about yourself and what you're doing and how people, what sort of people you help, a little bit more about what you're up to.
All right. RecTechMedia.com for everything I do. I write on the space. I podcast, of course. I've got a YouTube channel as well for the podcast. And I just love talking about recruiting technology in general. Beyond that, I'm an e-biker over here. That's my side hobby. I have an e-bike channel on YouTube called Chris Crossed. You can follow my journeys over there. That's my my part-time thing, and I'm excited about that as well. But I do e-bike reviews and group rides and things like that. So having fun on e-bikes. I just went down to Florida, did a DoorDash challenge on an e-bike with a bunch of other guys. So that was fun. But just RecTechMedia.com is where you can find me. And if you're interested in my job board stuff, that's over on JobBoardSecrets.com. So I do a lot of consulting for job boards as well, particularly on the niche side. I think I've helped out a few in Australia there. The Backpacker Job Board, you guys know them? It's a niche job board based in Australia there. A couple others over the years. But I've talked to founders all over the world who run different niche job boards and things like that. So I consult for them as well.
Yeah, amazing. So you got your fingers in a few pies there. That old e-bike thing, that's having a bit of a roaring time.
I've seen the videos from Australia. Yeah, the kids are running wild over there with the...
It's been really serious. There was kids, like no license, no road rules. I nearly knocked one off on a roundabout one day. He just came screaming through. And so they went from having kind of no laws and these kids who were putting these kits on and making them go really fast and just like screaming around like motorbike riders to like, now you can only go, they've made a law in Queensland. It's all different in different states. You can only go, I think it was 10 kilometres an hour. And these people are saying you can't ride a bike that slow or you fall off. And so it's just gone from, one end to the other.
Yeah, there's all kinds of laws coming out over here with different states. So it's pretty mishmash of e-bike laws coming out. But
I was behind two guys on the Sydney Harbour Bridge, BK, that were crossing the bridge. I think that's technically Australia's busiest traffic zone, that bridge there.
They're on e-bikes.
They're on e-bikes. Yeah, it's just...
I think I saw some kids, they tore up a golf course or something over
That's
there.
right. Yeah, the Northern Beaches golf course, I think it was. Yeah. Yeah, there was about 30 or 40 of them went rogue.
Yeah, I would have. When I was 15, I'd have been well into that.
So the kids are ruining it for the adults in the room,
Yeah, that's crazy.
Again.
Yeah.
Well, it's been lovely to have you on. Chris, is any sort of final words or anything else you'd like to share?
Always be learning and always be recruiting.
Love that.
Love that. You're so good. Thanks so much, Chris. It's been great.
All right, guys. It was my pleasure.
Thanks for joining us for today's episode of The Tech Savvy Recruiter. If you'd like to stay up to date with the latest recruitment trends and insights, make sure that you remember to subscribe so you don't miss an episode. Also, if you'd like to speak to Andrew about turning your tech stack into your secret weapon, or myself around creating an agency that delivers you more money, more meaning, and more freedom, we'd absolutely love to chat. Reach out to us on LinkedIn, and we look forward to seeing you next time. Thank you for your support.